So, first question is most fundamental question. Who are you?
My name is Candace Epps-Robertson, and I am a mom, a wife, an academic, and I am an Army.
And where do you live?
I live in Wake Forest, North Carolina.
So I put this question because RM asked, where do you live, right? So maybe can you give us a little more specific about the town you live in?
Sure. So Wake Forest is a small suburb of Raleigh, North Carolina, and Raleigh is the capital of North Carolina. It is a pretty quiet place to live, I think, and really beautiful in that we have lots of trails and places to walk and be outdoors. So I like it here.
Okay. And what do you do for a living?
I am a professor at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, where I teach classes in rhetoric and literacy and writing studies. And I do research in those areas as well.
Okay. And what is the happiest memory of your life?
Oh, the happiest memory would have to be the birth of my two daughters. I think that meeting them for the first time, I was just so in awe that I actually had a little human to hold. And so I always remember that. I was exhausted and tired, but just overwhelmed with so much joy to be able to finally meet them.
Okay. And what is the saddest memory of your life?
Losing my mother. My mom had ALS, and she lived with that disease for, from 2014 until 2019, and watching her have to give up so many of the things that she loved to do because her body was just unable to do them was sad. But the day that she actually left this world was probably the saddest for me.
Okay. Do you remember when you were young, what did you think about yourself?
I was an introvert as a child, and I loved being alone. I loved reading, and I think when I thought about myself, it was always through books and stories. So I would read a book and then imagine or actually try to act out the scenes from the book, in my room. And so much of my memory, or much of how I thought about myself, I think was through books. It was through other people's stories and trying to imagine myself in those places. Our family didn't do a lot of traveling because my parents worked a lot, and so my way of experiencing the world really came through literature, came through reading.
Okay. And has there been a time that you were angry at yourself, and how did you overcome that?
Oh yes. Oh yes. I have spent all of my adult life in university, either as a student or as a professor, as a teacher. And recently I put my materials together to go up for tenure. And I think that I had a lot of anger and frustration because I thought I should have done more. I could have done more research. I should have written more books. And what helped me to overcome that anger that I had towards myself was to also look at all the other things that I had done outside of work, such as raising a family, helping to take care of my mom when she was sick, and also just living. So I think trying to not have as narrow of a perspective about what success actually means is what helped me to forgive myself for feeling like I wasn't good enough, and to give myself more grace.
Okay, next question. Do you remember what kind of dream you had when you were young?
Yes. Initially, I think that I wanted to be, like most kids, an astronaut. I felt like going to space would be the coolest thing in the world. And then I thought that I wanted to be a doctor, an actual medical physician. Again, because I think a lot of kids believe that, and our parents tell us that we should have successful careers. And so I spent a lot of time, I think, having the dreams that other people told me I should have. And it wasn't until much later in my life that I learned what it means to really dream for yourself.
What is your dream now?
My dream now is to be happy and to allow myself to define what happiness means. Because again, I think it can mean so many different things for different people, and it's difficult to quiet all of the outside voices down to really figure out what that means for yourself.
Okay. So now we are gonna get into the BTS thing. So how did you first learn about BTS?
So I first heard about BTS from my daughter Phoenix, and it was in November of 2018. I distinctly remember that she got in the car. I was picking her up from school, and she said, "Mom, do you know BTS?" And I was like, "No, and we need to like hurry up and get in the car so we can go and do whatever it is that we need to do next." And then she just kept talking about them. So she was watching their music videos. She had heard about BTS from a friend who had seen them, I think, on one of the award shows. And Phoenix just fell head over heels into the BTS rabbit hole. And so I was really curious about her experience because she was so happy and so excited and just so engaged. And there seemed to be so much content. Like every day she was watching something else or learning something else. And so I was like, okay, who is BTS? What does that stand for? So I learned about them first through her.
And then, like, when is the moment that you decide to go a little deeper?
That's a really interesting question. And I think about that a lot because I don't know that I can trace like the exact moment, except I know that when Phoenix was listening to BTS, she had friends who were certainly interested, but she also had people at school who were not interested. And the more people questioned her about why she was interested in the group, the harder she seemed to really lock into being committed to wanting to be ARMY and wanting to learn more about BTS. And so witnessing that commitment, because she got teased a great deal initially about wanting to be a fan, about being a fan. But when she didn't back away from it, I was like, okay, like I want to learn more about who this group is. And I could see how happy it made her, like just listening to the music, talking with other ARMY. And honestly, I wondered whether or not, like, it was cool to see her be happy and excited, but I didn't know if I would be happy and excited. So I wanted to learn just because I wanted to know more about her experience, but I didn't necessarily go into it thinking like, oh, I'll be ARMY and, you know, I'll do research and write a book about BTS. I didn't think that at all. But I think for me, it really was listening to the music on my own. So she would send me links to music videos and say, oh, you should watch this or you should watch that. But when I started to explore independently of her, I was like, wow, like this music really touches, it says something to me. So it was important for me to have the experience of learning about BTS from her, but then also learning about BTS on my own. So I think it was probably 5 or 6 months after she asked me, do you know BTS? That I was then listening to music videos, and I would say, why didn't you share this link with me? Or like, why didn't you tell me about this song? Like, you know, she's like, you have to find it on your own. So I was grateful to have her both be my guide, but then also to have an opportunity to learn and explore on my own.
Cool. So do you remember the specific song that got you into like, wow, like this song is really different from any other popular songs?
Yes. So it was the music video for Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And the first video I'd ever seen was Spring Day. And Phoenix and I watched that, and then we read the translations for the lyrics. And I was in tears, like crying. You know, I was like, this is so beautiful. But it was Blood, Sweat, and Tears that was sort of like my moment of like, oh my gosh, I've never experienced anything like this. I think it was watching the video, because the video itself, like I kept telling Phoenix, I was like, this looks like a painting. Like they look like a painting come to life, like in a museum. How are they doing this? And then once I read the translations for the lyrics and could see how they were dealing with these themes of darkness and temptation and evil, you know, I thought, this is unlike anything I've ever experienced before. Like to have a group who is talking about such complicated issues in such a painfully beautiful way, both through the lyrics and then through their bodies with the dance and the setting for the music video. So I think that was my, like, I'm ARMY. Like, you know, this is something that I can definitely connect to.
Yeah, but normally when like some people get into the fandom, that's their like taste of music and go to concert and consuming their product is one thing, but that doesn't really change their normally in life. But I think with BTS thing, it kind of affected to your professional career also. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. And I think looking back on it, some of the questions that I was asking Phoenix have really been the impetus for the research that I've done. So initially I would say to Phoenix, like, you know, how is it that you connect not only with BTS, but like with ARMY? Like, how do you communicate? And, you know, how do you share stories? Like, how does all of this work? And my research traditionally has been about rhetoric and literacy, in that I'm really interested in how communities share and educate one another, not in traditional spaces like schools, but in other spaces as well. And so I could see that was exactly what was happening for her. So she was teaching herself Korean, she was learning more about the context and the lyrics for their songs, and she certainly was not learning that in school, right? So she was learning it from other fans and from the content that she was engaged with from BTS. So I was really curious about the opportunity for education and this transcultural exchange. Phoenix has never been a student who enjoyed history lessons, and so when she would talk about a song in the context like of something that was particular to Korean culture, like when she would talk about the schooling and education and how stressful it is for Korean students, and I would say, like, how did you learn that? How did you know that? And she'd say, oh, I listened to this song and then I Googled and found this article that talked about this, and I'm like, wow, like she is teaching herself because she genuinely wants to know. And so I was curious, both as a parent but also as a researcher, to see that there were many fans. This was not just Phoenix's experience, right? But many people were doing the same thing.
And you participated in the first BTS Global Interdisciplinary Conference in London. So
yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. I was really nervous, actually, because I didn't know that there was this whole network of researchers who were looking at BTS and ARMY. And so I was nervous to present my first paper there. But it was such a welcoming environment because I think people are so genuinely excited about how BTS is impacting so many different academic disciplines. And my own paper, my project, which Phoenix also presented at the end, a reflection, but it was about this education, the educational component, and how I think BTS and ARMY can be an inspiration to educators who are interested in thinking about teaching and pedagogy. One of the things that I think is quite remarkable, again, about BTS is that they don't dictate to their fans like what you need to believe or any particular way that you need to act or be. And I think that fans take that up as an invitation then to be able to express their commitment to the fandom and their commitment to their own local communities in any number of ways. And so one of the first things that I was really amazed about is the group One in an Army and the work that they do to raise money for various charities. And I thought that was impressive, certainly on one level, but the other part that was really interesting to me was the way that they engaged with ARMY on Twitter. So they would tweet about these campaigns, but then they would also ask questions like, you know, did you know about, in the campaign they did for human sex trafficking, right? They would also ask questions about that as well, or, you know, how does this impact our communities, or what other things can we do, or how do we need to talk about this? And that, as an educator, was phenomenal. So they are not only raising money and awareness, but they are encouraging people to actually reflect on their community and their own responsibility in the world. So my project looked at how we might think about BTS and ARMY as being a source of inspiration for educators who are interested in social issues.
this I asked you before, so I think maybe you have an answer by now. What is your number one BTS song?
Oh, yes. Phoenix actually asked me. She said, if she asked you what your favorite song is, what would you say? So that's still hard because I think it changes like day to day. But I love Paradise because this idea of, you don't have to run. Like you don't even have to have a dream. Like you can just be, and that's enough. I think it's just a really beautiful message. And it's something that I've been trying to both learn and then unlearn the sort of conditioning that has made me feel like you have to work all the time and you have to know exactly what it is that you want to do. Like it's okay just to be present and in the moment.
So if you meet BTS in person just the way you and I meet today, what would you say to them?
First, I'd have to take a deep breath. If I were ever to meet BTS, I would just want to express gratitude. So just thank you 7 times over because they have worked so hard and they have given so much to all of us. And I just have so much gratitude. I think I would just want to express my sincere thank you. And my hope that they also have the same joy and happiness and comfort that they give us, that they have that 7-fold in return.